Do ants hurt peony buds? This is a herbaceous peony, and that means, the term herbaceous means it dies back to the ground when it's finished for the year. But if you look at all these buds, they're covered with ants. And there's 3 ants there, there's 2 ants here, and I'm sure, oh, you know, ants sometimes bother me because I remember in our St. Thomas gardens, there's a term called laughing and dancing ants. And I remember that time that we were trimming some trees where we were planting citrus, and all of a sudden I started getting stung by these very fast ants, and I was starting to dance because they got, you know, under my jeans, and everybody was laughing at me. But ants here feed on the sugary substance that the peony buds produce. So they're not hurting your peony buds. I would say by having ants, it means you have a very diverse and rich and organic gardening. And the reason you have an organic garden is because the ants are alive and on your flowers. And if you had a garden, some people spray the ants. I don't recommend it. But again, this is going to come into bloom, and I see 2 to 3 ants on every bud. Let me show you a couple of different types of peonies that you might want to place in your garden. Tree peonies are great, and many of them are grafted. Now keep in mind that there's, you know, hundreds of different types of peonies, but this is called a tree peony. Some of the other peonies are called herbaceous. That means herbaceous, they die to the ground. This is a tree peony, and this here was last year's flowers right there. So this is not something you want to cut down. Cutting this down would damage the plant. And they're grafted, and grafted means this is the desirable plant, and it is fused together with a root. And the reason that happens is this on its own, this tree, pink one here, really cannot produce its own roots or survive in our climate. So tree peonies, you just tip them back in the fall, but look at the beautiful different colors of tree peonies. And you know, look at this one here. Look at the vibrant purple, and it sort of glows in the light. And there are other tree peonies that look like this. Easy to grow, full sun, bright shade. Now bright shade means a little bit of filtered sun. Doesn't mean morning sun, but afternoon sun. And if you go to places like Holland or England, these tree peonies will get bigger than me and wider than my hands here. So you will see them if you travel to other countries. Try to incorporate some of these beautiful tree peonies in your own garden. This is a red and white bicolor tree peony, and this is about 35 years old, and we don't prune them, we just tip them back. Maybe you can see where last year's flower is, but look at this flower here. It really looks crepe papery, and it's soft and delicate. And if you ever travel to Holland, or even on the west coast of the US, sometimes you'll see these tree peonies getting as tall as 10 feet. Let me show you my favorite variety you can have in your garden. Right here is last year's flower. We have not pruned it for 30 years. That is last year's flower. It produces a nice dried pod. But this tree peony here is one of my favorites. And they come in a variety of pinks that you'll see here. And if it gets too warm, they won't last as long. But you can look at the beautiful center of these peonies. So they took this tree peony and they hybridized it with the regular herbaceous. I think this is Archangel and this one is Maydawn. And they have come up with a whole new group of peonies called the Ito peonies. And they bloom a little later, and I'll show you what that looks like right over here. Here is a 7-year-old clump of an Ito peony, and the name on this one is John Harwood. Beautiful yellow flowers that open up like some of the other tree peonies I showed you. Now, these look like tree peonies, but they die back to the ground. So they took our regular peonies, hybridized them with the tree peonies, and created a peony that has such great papery yellow flowers. And there are about 25 buds on this clump. Fantastic for the full sun or bright shade, and you can have this right in your own backyard.